Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. This video comes from Holly Springs, Georgia, and there is no typical format that comes with this. There's no community incident briefing. There's no spokesperson that talks about it. No one gets on here and talks about any background information whatsoever. That happens from time to time with some agencies. Some agencies just, they don't produce those type of videos. All they do is take some of the raw body cam footage and release it to media. And their public information officer, if they have one, might release a document to the media explaining what's going on. But they don't take their time to record and edit an actual public relations kind of video pertaining to these incidents. And that's the case here, to my knowledge. The footage comes from 11 Alive News, and I have an article here from 11 Alive News that I'll read about to kind of give a synopsis of basically what you're about to see here. There's two different video footage recordings. Actually, I guess technically, yeah, just two of them. One is from the dash cam footage of a police sergeant who makes this traffic stop. And then the other is body camera footage from the officer who came to back him up and ended up dying during this incident. So the 11 Alive news article from April 1st, 2022. Now, keep in mind, this is an incident that occurred back in 2021, June of 2021. And it wasn't until here recently that they released the body cam and dash cam footage for this incident. But this article I'm about to read comes from 11 Alive, written by Joe Hink. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. It's Henke, so it's either Hink or Hinky, not really sure. Dated April 1st, 2022. Holly Springs, Georgia. The investigation into a traffic stop from the June of 2021 that left a Holly Springs police officer and a suspect dead is now closed, and investigators said the officer's use of deadly force was justified. The GBI sent 11 Alive a 251-page investigation summary along with body and dash camera footage from the incident. Timeout. So GBI stands for Georgia Bureau of Investigations. And I was not able to find anything about this 251-page report. Some places you'll be able to find some of that kind of information. Sometimes you'll see, like California, you can usually find district attorney's offices that will have some of the investigative reports and stuff like that, some summaries and everything listed on their sites, but I couldn't find this one. Anyway, going back to the article. During the incident, 25-year-old officer Joe Burson was killed. 29-year-old Ansy Dolce, the man police pulled over, also died after being shot by Burson during the struggle. The suspect's last name, Dolce, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Dolce, so it's either Dulce or Dulce. I don't know. From here on out, I'm just going to refer to him as suspect because I don't really think he's important enough to warrant mentioning his name anymore. The report includes a letter from the Cherokee County District Attorney calling Burson's actions justified and stating if suspect would have lived, murder charges would have been filed against him. In the videos 11 Alive received, suspect can be seen stepping out of his car along Hickory Road. The GBI's report details late in the evening of June 15, suspect was pulled over by Holly Springs Police Sergeant Andrew Drake for driving 72 miles per hour in a 40 mile per hour zone. Burson arrived to provide backup. Also in the report are details of suspect's past. He is described as a mixed martial arts fighter with a criminal history, and attached court records list him as a confirmed member of the Sex Money Murder Gang, a subset of the larger Bloods Gang. According to U.S. Marshals interviewed by GBI and quoted in the report, suspect was out of prison on parole in New York for robbery and attempted robbery convictions, and he had an open domestic violence case involving his then-wife in Illinois. 20 months before the traffic stop in Holly Springs, the GBI report details suspect removing a Department of Corrections ordered GPS monitor, and U.S. Marshals had tracked and attempted to take suspect back into custody in New York, Illinois, and Missouri. The week before the traffic stop, marshals waited outside the mother's house near Holly Springs, where it is believed he might be staying. Also in the report, suspect is described as saying during the traffic stop that he didn't have a driver's license on him, and then provided his brother's name along with a date of birth instead of his own. Drake walked back to a squad car to check out the name and date of birth. At that time, Burson's conversation with suspect was recorded by his body camera. Suspect asks if he can call his mother or an attorney. Burson tells him he can't make a call at that time. "Why do you need a lawyer if what you're telling us is true?" Burson said. "Because you guys are about to arrest me," suspect replies. "Why?" Burson asked. "I know the drill," suspect said. "Sorry?" Burson then asked. "I know the drill. You said you smelled pot, so you're going to search the car," suspect said. The GBI report details Drake smelling a strong odor of what he suspected to be marijuana in suspect's car. Investigators later found several bags with marijuana on the labels and a canister filled with a leafy green substance. "Is there pot in there?" Burson asked. Suspect is seen on video nodding his head up and down. "How much?" Burson inquired. "I'll show you," suspect said, and then started walking toward his car. Burson replies no and walks in front of suspect to cut him off. Drake then exits his car, walks up behind suspect, and attempts to put him in handcuffs. The video shows him pulling away and running back into his car. During a struggle with both officers, they tased suspect as he was in the driver's seat and then drives off with Burson still inside the car. "He's got Burson in the car. He's got Burson in the car," Drake is heard yelling into the radio. Moments later, he's heard yelling, "Shots fired, shots fired." The report details suspect driving approximately 1,000 feet down the road before hitting a guardrail and crashing in the ditch. During that time, Burson shot suspect multiple times while also receiving extensive injuries. Burson was taken to the hospital, but the GBI report mentions he most likely died at the scene of the crash. Suspect was taken to a different hospital where he later died from his injuries sustained during the shooting. Once the GBI completed its investigation, it sent its files to Cherokee County District Attorney Shannon Wallace for review. In a letter responding to the GBI, she wrote, "Based on the information contained in your case file and my review of this case file, there is no evidence of criminal conduct on behalf of Officer Joseph Burson, as the shooting of the suspect was justified under Georgia law. Had suspect survived, this office would have pursued a prosecution against him for murder as well as other charges." All right. So this video, it initially started off with Burson's body cam footage at the beginning, and then it went into the dash cam footage. So I've actually gone forward here and got the dash cam footage brought up to play first. I'll play that, and then I'll go back into Burson's body cam footage and play that. Without further ado, here we go.
Hickory Road, Harmony Lake Drive, Charlie Kilo Whiskey 8721, CKW 8721, still running on.
2330.
Turn 46 out.
1234.
Road approach or road above. Georgia 20 speed. Bravo Tango Papa. 694 BTP. Dispatcher is 420 agreement. Mazda. Slovenia.
Houston, Hickory Road. What's your call street?
Hickory Spring District.
Three 715 units code 4.
Code 4. You run the name of that birth.
Go ahead.
Last name Delta Oscar Lima Charlie Echo. First name Peter, common spelling. Date of birth 93 July 23 93.
You advise 73 of 93, 73 of 93.
7/23/93.
Cherokee to 760 code 4. Definitely cover her.
Army my drug!
Shit.
Good!
Check now unit. What unit was that? Was it 760 or 17? See. I'm clear 17 and 29. Hickory at Harmony. Hickory at Harmony.
760.
2319.
Got person in the car. Get that person in the car. Get rid of Shots fired. Get on the ground! Two more units! Roll over! The bill, your handcuffs at this time, we need to go forward. 1018, still be on one officer first.
There's nothing wrong with the audio at this point. This body camera is in buffer mode. Here in a second, you'll see his hand reach up to the camera and hit the event button to start recording, and then the audio will kick in.
Yes, sir. What's in your pockets?
2317, 715 units to 4.
Let me see what's in your hand there.
Code 4, running in Denver.
Move it back in.
Go ahead.
Last name Delta, Oscar, Lima, Charlie, Echo. First name Peter, common spelling, date of birth 93, July 23, 93,
How come you have a fleet tag over the registration sticker?
You're right.
It's a rental?
73 of 93, 73 of
Who'd
93.
you rent it from? Hertz.
723, 93.
Sorry? Can you call my mom, please? Not right now. If you're being honest with us, should get you out of here shortly. After we're done this.
Cherokee to 716, 4.
Not at the moment, no. Why do you need a lawyer if what you're telling us is true?
Because you guys are about to arrest me.
Why?
2318.
Sorry?
I know the drill. You said you smoke pot, so we're going to search the car. So you're going to arrest me and detain me.
Is there pot in there? How much? No. Just, no. Stop. Go back.
I'm sorry. I was going to the car.
Stay on the ground! Come down.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. So the traffic stop is normal. So the article mentioned that the police sergeant made this traffic stop based off the suspect doing 70-something miles per hour in a 40-mile-per-hour zone. Go figure that the dude who has committed robbery and domestic violence and other stuff would be speeding. Not that surprising. No issues with the traffic stop or anything like that. So at this point, before this, whenever this sergeant guy had went up to the vehicle, he could smell marijuana, and there is a bit of a delay in us picking up any good audio until we see his body camera get turned on. So whatever was being said back there at the vehicle, not really sure what was being said. He obviously knows that he has detected an odor of marijuana because he has that conversation with this other officer here. But at some point, he can smell marijuana, and they have decided to bring him back here to this vehicle, and he's going to be running his name. This dude, I would suspect, at some point, was formulating in his head risk versus reward type of stuff. He probably calculating, what he can do to get out of this, and he's got his brother's name that he's using, and I don't know anything about his brother, if his brother has a criminal background or not, and so it's possible that his brother has a clean. Well, maybe not such a clean record, but it's likely that his brother may not have a warrant out for his arrest, whereas this guy actually does have a warrant out for his arrest. And so he might be thinking that he can get away by using his brother's name, and they'll cut him a ticket and he'll go. And he may have been thinking that and think if he plays it cool, they'll run his brother's name. They might be similar in age, might be similar in appearance, and he may be thinking, all right, I can get away from this one. As they're sitting there talking, and the sergeant gets back in the vehicle and runs the name on the computer and everything, and Officer Burson here is talking to him, I would suspect that at some point it's clicked in his head that he's probably not going to be able to get back in that car and go about his business. Because he verbalizes that. He knows that they're going to be searching the vehicle, and that they're most likely going to be taking him into custody. So I would say there's probably a pretty good possibility that in the beginning of this, he probably thought he was going to be getting away with it. And then as he sat there and continued to think a little bit more, it basically dawned on him that this is the end of the road for him, and he's going to be going in. And that's when fight mode kicks in for this guy. This is when he starts to make the conscious decision that he's going to be resisting and trying to escape. Now, imagine if he decided to come to that conclusion and it just be one officer there. What if he had decided to attack this sergeant by himself? And I'll talk about the sergeant here in a little bit, but in the footage here towards the end where he's got the suspect out and he's just kind of jumping around, waving his arms, and not acting the way that you would expect someone to be acting under those circumstances, who knows how well he would have fared against this guy. The news report indicated that he had trained in MMA fighting, and I don't know anything about this guy and his background or anything like that, but would he have fared very well against him? I don't know. but that's something to think about when people decide to go from being cooperative to non-cooperative, and then not just non-cooperative, but like actively resistant. That's why it's always important to be backing people up, and for the non-law enforcement people, this is why you always see multiple officers on stops, because it's just not safe for one officer to deal with an unknown person all by themselves. And that is traditionally why you'll always see at least a second officer there. Sometimes, depending on what name comes back over the radio when they run the tags and everything, you may be seeing 3 or 4 officers there backing up. Not every area has a 2-man car. Only the very large agencies out there can really afford to do 2-man cars. Majority of the country does 1-man cars. And in some areas, there are some officers who are literally by themselves the whole shift. You think about some state troopers or highway patrol officers or some sheriff's deputies in really small rural areas. They don't have any backup. And if they do have backup, their backup's probably 20 minutes away. And that can be kind of a hairy situation. Security, security doesn't always have backup, so to speak. Now, although there are some very strong similarities between security and law enforcement, there are some obvious differences. Obviously, something like this, security would not be engaged in a behavior like this and trying to apprehend someone and that person be wanting to fight for their freedom. But security could be dealing with someone who would want to fight them while they're trying to get them off of property or, whatever. And they're by themselves. Security typically don't have radios that go to repeaters and can summon other security officers to come help them out. They're literally all by their lonesome and can't call for backup. They can't hit the emergency button and have the cavalry come. And I don't think that's something that some people think about too often. From the law enforcement perspective, they see, a bunch of cops on a traffic stop, and some people may be thinking, oh, that's a waste of money. Why they need so many people there? This is why. You don't know who you're dealing with, and it's not very safe to be doing it with just one person only. And then when it comes to demeanors and attitudes and how some officers will deal with people, state police can have a very authoritative type of demeanor about themselves in comparison to a city cop. You may see that some troopers are more hard, and some city people are a little bit softer. And there's a reason for that, because that trooper's all by himself. His nearest backup is probably 30 minutes away. He's got to handle shit on his own. He don't have anybody coming to back him up right away. And so you got to approach things slightly different when those realities exist. So this is when he started to make that decision. This is my opportunity to go get in the vehicle. He's probably thinking in his head, most likely, I believe what he was thinking in his head is, I'll go up to this car and I'll hand him the stuff, and his hands will be full, and then I'll jump in real quick and take off. Or he may have been thinking that once he gets to a certain point, he'll break off in a sprint and get in the vehicle before they could do anything. That would be my guess of what his mindset was. As soon as he goes to grab a hold of him, he starts to book it.
holding call return.
He loses his footing as he starts to get into the vehicle, and that is one reason why I think it's incredibly stupid for people to wear flip-flops out in public. Flip-flops do not offer you any type of stability whatsoever. And this guy being a criminal, you would think that he would recognize that fact, because him being on parole means he's been in prison, and that means he's been in jail before. And jails will purposely give inmates flip-flops because it is harder to fight in flip-flops than it is shoes. You don't have as good of traction as you do with shoes. And in fact, when you see people in a jail start putting on their shoes when it's not even rec time, that's a clear indication it's fight time. They're about to fight someone whenever they start putting their shoes on. The rest of the time, they got their flip-flops on. So he loses his footing with his flip-flops, hits the ground there, but of course, he recovers quickly, gets back in the vehicle, and then that's when tasers get deployed on this guy. At first, I thought maybe taser had been deployed into him, and that's why he kind of dropped and fell, and that's still a possibility of happening. I'm just not really confident in that thought that that's what went on. I think he just kind of more or less lost his footing here. You can see the taser bay doors flying off and bouncing off the side of the car there. So they've deployed taser on this guy. And when we go back to the body cam footage, you can hear the loud cackling of the taser. And if you've ever been in any taser training course, then you know that the loud cackling sound of the taser is a good indication that you have poor probe placement. The louder the taser, the less effective it is. If you get good placement and you're achieving an MI out of that, then the taser should be somewhat quiet. I mean, it's not going to be silent or anything, but instead of hearing the it'll be more of a there'll be a sound difference there. And the fact that there's are cycling so loudly, that tells me that there's probably a clothing disconnect, or one probe has gone in, or whatever. So at this point, I think that a viable option would be to take the gun and ram it down into a leg and do a 3-point connection there. So that should be kind of the quick and easy remedy to when you deploy taser and you're not seeing the desired effect. Take that gun and ram it into an area furthest away from where you can see a probe at. And that should complete the circuit and lock them up. If it's a 26 model, then obviously, you're not going to have a backup shot. So that should be the first reaction to do, is just do a follow-up drive stun. If you got an X2, it may be quicker and more of a viable option to go ahead and just fire a second cartridge out of the gun and get your connection that way. Or you can still go ahead and do the same thing, ram the gun down to an area furthest away from the probe and give another cycle, and that should complete the circuit and lock them up. So I'm assuming that at this point he is probably getting the keys, getting them in the thing, trying to get it started up while resisting the officer. You can see that he had attempted to deliver some strikes. You can see it through the back windshield here. Then he decides to get his baton out. I don't think that the baton was the greatest option to use here. I think that, like I said earlier, taking the gun and driving it into a lower extremity would have been the more viable option. I think that by pulling out of the vehicle, losing what purchase points he had, going for the baton, maybe gave this guy a little bit more of an advantage in getting this vehicle started up and out of park. The baton, you can't strike very well within a closed distance like this with an extended baton. You're not going to be able to get the swinging motion on that. Now, he may have been trying to use the baton as leverage, creating like a fulcrum kind of thing, using it into the arm. to gain compliance over this guy's limb. But even then, I still don't think that would have been the most viable option. I think he should have just continued with the use of the taser and just completing the circuit with a follow-up drive stun. If he was going to be going to any other secondary option, then I think that pepper spray would have been one of the more viable options. Of course, in an enclosed space like that, it's going to suck super bad, but it would, if he ended up taking off, it would make it difficult for him to see very clearly where he's going. But the best thing, I think, would have just been to continue on with a taser. The sergeant, so when the person's over here dealing with him, the sergeant's kind of behind him, and he's not able to do much. He's not able to go hands-on and do anything to this guy. I think that he could have gone to the rear passenger door of this vehicle and maybe opened it up and came in from the back and dealt with this guy, or could have gone all the way around to the side, opened up the passenger door, and deal with him from there. I think those would have been better options versus just standing behind Officer Burson here and just holding his taser and not really able to do anything at that point. He could have, from this point, reached in and fired his taser into his lower leg, and then try to get the gun itself rammed up into a higher point within his body, try and complete circuit. But I don't think that would have been the best option to do from the driver's side door right behind Burson. I think the better option would have been to go to either the rear passenger door or the side passenger door over here and deploy taser from that angle and maybe get a better connectivity there.
Your now unit, what unit was that? Was it 16 or 17? See. I'm clear 17 and 29. Hickory at Harmony.
So now he has committed the act of kidnapping this officer, and I can't remember the video. It was somewhere like Casper, Wyoming, or something like that. I cannot vividly recall which one, but there was a video that I did several episodes back, and similar kind of thing happened. An officer went to get hands-on with a guy, and he took off, and the officer was trapped inside the vehicle with him, and it was a kidnapping at this point. And that officer ended up having to use deadly force to keep him from being kidnapped. And I remember saying in that video, I don't think I had ever seen anything like that before on video. And I guess I'd never heard of anything like that happening either. But after I did that video, there was another video that came out, and I think it was in Washington, D.C., I believe. And I think there was another one that I've seen that was kind of similar. But I can't. Some of these videos kind of run together, and it's kind of hard to remember all of them. But I don't know if this is a more of a common thing than what I think it is or believe it to be. But this is a very real possibility for law enforcement, is while they're trying to gain control over someone in a vehicle, that person's able to take off with them in it, and that's kidnapping. That officer doesn't want to go on a car ride with this guy, not in the least bit. And where's this guy going? I have no idea where he's going. He could be going to wherever he's been hiding at, and once he gets there, he may have a plan to kill that police officer. And there's no way to find where that police officer went. His portable radio probably doesn't have tracking in it. If he has his cell phone on him, his cell phone could be pinged, but what if he left his cell phone in his vehicle? There's no way to track where this officer could be once he's kidnapped. And I can't say this with any 100% certainty, but I'm pretty sure all 50 states have it within their use of force laws that kidnapping is grounds for justifiable use of deadly physical force against the person. And And this moment, as this guy's taking it off, absolutely 100% justified in using deadly physical force. This is a kidnapping. So the sergeant ditches the taser, falls and hits the ground, and he continues to run after the vehicle. I don't get that one. I don't understand why he's running off towards this vehicle that is now entering the roadway. So he does end up shooting. Let's see here. Let's back it up some.
Hickory at Harmony.
All right, I'll count it. So. So about 15 seconds is how long it took from the vehicle taking off with Officer Burson in it until you hear shots fired being called over the radio. That's a long time. That's a very long time. And although we can't see what was going on inside the vehicle, how his hands were placed or tied up or anything like that, but I think that's an incredibly long amount of time to go from being kidnapped to shooting your gun. Now, like I said, he may not have been able to get to his gun in that moment, but that's a long time. I would expect to shoot a lot sooner. He may have been trying to do his due diligence and giving the guy verbal commands and another chance to stop before he decided to shoot. I don't know. They end up cutting his body camera footage short. You don't get to see the fullness of it. So, can't say. But I definitely do think that, should have shot sooner. I think 15 seconds was way too long. So they paused the video and then cut forward. They say in the article that he went about 1,000 feet before going off the roadway. So this isn't too far from where the traffic stop occurred at. We see the sergeant over here. And he doesn't even have his gun out. This is a failure in my opinion. This guy has just committed the act of kidnapping a person. And he don't know where the officer's at. All he knows is shots have been fired. He doesn't even know who has fired these shots at this point. The suspect could have had a gun that he used to kill the officer, or he could have taken the other officer's gun and killed him with his own gun, and now he has it. Could be in his waistband, don't know. This sergeant doesn't even have his damn gun out to begin with, and then transitions with putting the flashlight in his gun hand and then trying to reach into his pocket with his non-dominant hand. That does not sit well with me at all. I see a lack of aggressiveness in him. He should have been more aggressive and more decisive in his actions towards this guy and getting him to comply with what he wanted him to do. He should have, at the very least, had a gun pointed at him. Why he did not have his gun pointed at him, I don't know. I wish he could provide some kind of explanation behind why he did that or did not do that. But this is unacceptable in my opinion.
Get on the ground!
Get on the ground. The guy shakes his head no. Yeah, that's a no-go. Like, you're the fucking police. You tell someone to do something, especially in this context. He just kidnapped an officer. You don't see the other officer anywhere. You know shots been fired, but you don't see the other officer. And you're telling this guy to get down, and he's saying no, and you're doing nothing about it. Like, that's some Barney shit right there. The minute he said no, should have been taser ride or stick time for him. He should have whipped that baton out and beat the fucking shit out of this dude and made him comply. He reaches back for his cuffs. Earlier, when they were at the scene of the traffic stop and they went to go get hands on with him, and he ran, I would suspect that, excuse me, I would suspect he dropped his handcuffs at some point, and they're back at the scene of the traffic stop. So he has to go back to his car and get another pair of handcuffs, and it only appears as though he has one pair of cuffs on him. You're working patrol as law enforcement. I don't see why you would have only just one pair of handcuffs on you. In my opinion, if you're working law enforcement patrol, you should have at least two pair of cuffs on you. Security, yeah, I mean, it's not like you're going to be cuffing people a whole lot. I would say for some security, you could probably get away with not carrying any cuffs whatsoever, but security that does carry cuffs, I think one pair of cuffs is suffice. I don't really see the point or reason why some security carry like 2 or 3 pairs of handcuffs. I mean, it's not like you're going to be handcuffing a bunch of people doing security work. And I certainly don't really understand why some security will carry the handcuffs to kangaroo style to the front for quick cuffing. Like who the hell are you quick cuffing? But law enforcement, definitely, if you work in patrol, you need to be having 2 pair of cuffs on you. Like that should be a standard right there. So why this guy doesn't have 2 sets on him, I have no idea. But he has to go back to his car and get a set.
Roll over!
And then
2 more units! 2 more units!
And then the whole him jumping out and waving his arms and everything. Like, you're in a police car that has flashy lights turned on. Like, do you not think that the other person is not going to see you? I have a lack of confidence in this police sergeant. I don't like what I see. I think and the fact that he's a sergeant means that he's been there for a while. Right? Like, he has had to have been there for a few years to be able to meet this rank of sergeant. It's not like he just got hired, 5 months ago and is now a sergeant. So he's been there for a while, and he is acting like this. This is... I'm not even going to go down the ranting road, or try not to. Like, that's just... There needs to be some retraining or a separation at this point. Alright, so we'll go back to the body cam footage. So the light bar has an override on there to where the front of the bar no longer flashes and it just turns on steady white light. I do like that option. I think it's a pretty good option to be able to provide as much light as possible into the vehicle. That way, more light, the better, the more you can see. There are some times where it becomes a little bit of a detriment, and right here, I think, is kind of a weird positioning, I think, because now he is having to keep one hand up and shield from this bright-ass light so that he can talk to the guy. And this guy is not having any of the effects occurring to him because he's got his back to the light. So I think that some positioning, better positioning would have been good. Have this guy having to stare into the bright light and have him become slightly more disoriented.
Pull your pocket over. Let me see what's in there. Pull your
2317, 715, units to 4.
So that right there was deceptive behavior. So he attempted to hide the rolling papers there. Now, is that an end of the world kind of thing right there, those rolling papers? No. But that shows that this guy is being deceptive. He knows that from prior experience that rolling papers are drug paraphernalia, and he's trying to hide that. And the officer is very alert, and he catches on to that he's being deceptive and he's trying to hide something in his pocket, and it just ends up being roller papers. But still, that kind of deceptive behavior gives you a good indication of who you're dealing with. People start trying to lie to you and be deceptive and just hide shit. What else do they have to hide? If they're hiding one little thing, they got more stuff to hide.
What's in your hand there?
Code 4, you're running into it, bro.
Move it back.
Go ahead.
Last name Delta Oscar Lima Charlie Echo. First name Peter, common spelling, date of birth 93 July 23 1935.
Okay.
7.
Get you out of here shortly.
You already said you smoke pot, so you're gonna search the car. So you're gonna arrest me and detain me.
Was there pot in there? Stop. Stop. Go back.
I'm sorry. I was going to the car.
What the fuck?
Do not move!
All right. So I don't really think there's much of anything else to say about the tactics or anything like that. The officer did end up dying in this case. They didn't really give any details into how he died. They just said that he died in basically the crash. So I'm assuming that probably what happened is when they crashed, he probably received some type of head injury. And, it could be that, when they went down the ditch or whatever, it could have been that they hit a tree and, his head hit or something like that. I have no idea. But I would just suspect that the most likely cause of death was probably a head injury of some sort. Or it could have been some wild freak thing where they went down an embankment and a tree limb just rammed through his chest or something like that. I don't know. But I would say that most likely it was probably a head injury of some sort. The suspect, he's a piece of shit. There's no other way to say it. The suspect's a piece of shit. He's on parole for robbery convictions. He's been involved in a domestic violence issue with his wife. And I would say that although they don't include a whole lot of stuff in there about his criminal past, I would say he definitely has more charges than just robbery for what he was in parole for. So here we have most likely a repeat offender, and if not just a repeat offender, then he's at least a violent offender, right? Like robbery is not a victimless crime, so to speak. It's not theft. It's not like he went to someone's doorstep and stole their Amazon package. Like, he robbed someone. That means he pulled a weapon on someone or used a weapon on someone and took something from them. So that's a violent offense right there. And he was part of a documented gang, which had probably one of the dumbest names I've ever heard. Let me take a quick look back at this article real quick, see if I can find the name of it. The Sex Money Murder Gang, which is a subset of the larger Bloods gang. So Sex Money Murder. Like, what the hell kind of a name is that? Sex Money Murder. I mean, is this the stuff that, they like to do? Is this like the order of things that they do? Like, what? Like, who comes up with a name like that? Sex Money Murder. So, documented gang member in prison and then gets parole. Sadly, that is a recurring thing within this country. Violent offenders, repeat offenders, getting parole or getting probation when they should not be getting those things. Those things should be reserved for people who are non-violent. But instead, all these little gang-banging thugs, all these little worthless piece of shit oxygen thieves are getting parole and probation. And they are going out and continuing to victimize more people. This is a failure of the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system is failing the public. It is not keeping the public safe. And there's really no justice being done when you take a person who violently offends another person and then they get out early. What kind of justice is that? What kind of message does that send to other people who want to go rob other people? Oh, well, I can go rob someone and get out of prison early. I'll get parole. There's not a deterrence there. No one is being deterred from committing these violent offenses. The criminals view the criminal justice system as a freaking joke, and it is. It is a freaking joke, especially New York. New York is the worst, one of the worst of them all. And it's just a recurring thing in this country from coast to coast. Criminals are getting out of jails and prisons way too soon, and then they go on to victimize more people, and people die as a result of this. This is something that needs to stop. This country needs to get hard on crime. Right now, there is no hard crime, hard on crime being done. There's no hard time for prisoners. Not even the least bit. I mean, hell, you've got prisons giving inmates tablets, smart tablets, so they can have access to the internet and email and photos. Like, what kind of hard time is that? Literally, someone could fucking murder you and your family, go to prison, and then they get a smart tablet so they can keep up with their family on email and get photos and videos, and then get on their commissary and get Cokes and chips and candy, and then they might even be able to get a conjugal visit here and there while in prison and get access to drugs and alcohol and cell phones and do whatever the hell they want. So there is no hard time in prisons. There is no justice anymore, it seems like, in the criminal justice system. And it's going to get worse from here on out. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And it should already be causing a change. It should already be causing that quote-unquote, I guess you could say, grassroots movement where people start to band together and go to their politicians and say, hey, something needs to change. Like, this shit ain't working. Unfortunately, it just hasn't got to that point yet. So it is going to get worse, and it's going to continue to get worse until people finally say enough is enough and start making enough noise to the politicians, where the politicians start to use their ink pens more and sign more bills to get harder on crime and start locking people away. There are just some people in this world that they need to be locked away forever. They do. They really do. They need to be locked away forever under our current laws, right? Like the way our laws are and everything. It's the way things are when it comes to the death penalty and stuff like that. It's very, very hard to do anything with the death penalty. So it seems like the current thing is to just lock away. But we're not even doing that good of a job of locking away. But there are just some people who just do not need to be out in society anymore. They're violent individuals who have proven time after time that they cannot be with the rest of us. They can't walk among us without trying to hurt us. And those people, either A, we need to change the laws and take a new approach and open up the death penalty for more things, or B, we just need to start locking people away for a very long period of time. And if we're going to be locking people away for a long period of time, then it needs to be for violent offenders, people who are hurting other people and committing very violent crimes and have done it multiple times. So, yeah, if you do one violent crime, I mean, yeah, you should be punished. But if you say we adopt a three strikes rule, for violent offenses, you do something 3 times in a row, that's a pretty good clear indication that you have been given multiple chances to get your shit in order and you just can't do it. And so you just need to be locked away until you're 65 years old, 70 years old, something. And it needs to be a very old age. Like, people don't need to be getting out when they're still in their 20s and 30s. It does not. There needs to be a certain age, and I think 70. 70 is a good age. You want to play around and be a gangbanger? Then all right, cool. Go ahead, go do it. It's just that when your ass get caught, you're going to stay in prison until you're 70. And the reason why I say 70 is because when you look at the streets, where's your 70-year-old gangbangers? Well, there's not really any 70-year-old gangbangers because they can't keep up with the 20-year-olds. And the 20-year-olds will slit their fucking throats. They'll kill them. And they know this. The streets are run by young people, right? Young people will fight. And once you get to a certain age, you can't fight very well anymore. There's a reason why you see 15 to 25-year-olds on the street corner slinging dope and gangbanging, shooting each other. They're young. They got it in them. 70-year-olds, you're not seeing 70-year-old dudes doing drive-bys. You're not seeing 70-year-old dudes on the street corner slinging rock. You're just not seeing that. Because they know they cannot compete with a 20-year-old punk who will just come up and just straight. They don't even have to do a drive-by on them. They just come around and hit them with their own cane and kill them. And they know this. And there is no respect on the streets. It's not like they're going to be respecting an old person or anything like that. They will rob old people. They will kill old people. They've done it, and they will continue to always do that. The only respect, so to speak, on the street is that of violence. If you're a person capable of violence and have shown that you can get violent with other people, that you're about that life, then people will respect that, and they will either stay away or they will challenge that, and there will be a fight from there. 70-year-olds are not they're not projecting that image of being about it anymore. They may have been about it 30 years ago, but once they're in their 70s, they've lost their touch. They can't continue to do that stuff anymore. Now, it doesn't mean that once they get released after being 70 years old, that they won't go into some other criminal enterprise. They may still be involved in some criminal stuff, but as far as them being a major player and just being a violent little shit, not very likely at all. They're just incapable of doing it, and things change once you get older. I mean, when you look at interviews and documentaries of people in prison, you will generally see your older people acting a little bit wiser. And of course, you'll see the 20-year-olds acting all stupid and peacocking and doing all that crazy shit. But the older guys, you'll see that the older you get, the wiser you get, and some of that street stuff kind of goes away with them. So that's why I say we should just lock people up until they're 70 if they're going to be violent offenders. That way, when they get out, they ain't got it in them anymore to be violent. I guess that's about it. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching.